My coach and I kind of like, all right, we've got to go for Olympic trials, the 236. Like, do you want to just commit to it and go for it? And I was like, let's do it.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon is like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people.
That used to be me, but not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on different platforms. Really happy to have you here. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Marathon Podcast. This is your podcast for everything running, and I'm trying to have guests on in every episode, 3 episodes a week, and I'm having a blast with it. If you are a regular listener, welcome back. Really appreciate you being here. There are thousands of people tuning into the Marathon Podcast every week, and I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time and enjoying the episodes. So just a big thank you from me before we head into today's episode. Today we are having Sofie Schunk with us, and she is a very inspiring athlete. She has some challenges that most of us are not dealing with. She's a type 1 diabetes athlete, or she has type 1 diabetes, and she is an athlete. She is a 236 marathoner. She qualified for the Olympic trials, and I feel like this gave me a lot of perspective. She was talking a lot about the challenges that she was facing, and also the challenges that I think a lot of us kind of we're not really aware of because we're not familiar with type 1 diabetes. So a really, really good conversation with Sofie that you're going to hear very soon. Before we jump into that episode, I just want to give a quick recap of what has happened today, because I just finished watching the New York Marathon, and that was a great race. First of all, in the wheelchair division, we have 2 athletes who are kind of dominating these days, and I was thinking about it today that it's really impressive how much they're traveling and going from city to city, and they just win time after time. So Susanna Scaroni and Marcel Hugh, they're just doing so well, and it's really impressive to watch. And I feel like there's so much risk involved when they're competing and racing, because the speed, and it looks really, really difficult. I have a lot of respect for them, and so congrats to Susanna and Marcel for on their wins today, but also earlier this year. It's been great to follow them. And then in the women's division, professionals in the elite field today, it was super exciting. I was watching this the whole time, and luckily they were following the women quite a lot today, and we were able to watch the race unfold. We ended up having Helen Abiri as the winner in the new course record, under 220 for the first time, to 1951. And for the longest time, we just saw these women battling, and Sifan Hassan was also up there. I was really hoping for her. I'm just a big fan of the way she's racing, the way she is as an athlete, and it seemed like it was a bit too hard for her today, but also that last mile or two between Helen Abiri and Sharon Lokedi, that was really, really cool to witness. And that kick at the end of the race, it was clear and obvious that Helen had some unfinished business with the New York Marathon, but now she's a 2-time New York Marathon winner and 2-time Boston Marathon winner. Quite a legend within marathon running. I also want to give credit to Fiona O'Keefe, who was the best American runner today. It was really, really impressive to see how she was battling what looked like some stomach issues, but still set a new American course record. That was something that I thought was really cool to watch, and it was hard to tell in the beginning of the race whether she was going to be able to fight for the win or not, but a bright future for her. And if I got it right, this was kind of just her second marathon that she's actually finished. So very, very, very impressive. In the men's division, we obviously had Kipchoge, and he kind of announced. I don't know if he did announce, but he announced that this would be his last race. It could be that as I'm recording this, that he is actually announcing something. I know that he had a press conference after. I'm sure you guys will know by now what that is about, but I guess we didn't really expect him to win today, and it was not his course, and he hasn't been the version of himself that he has been for the last few years. But still, that did not keep the New York City Marathon from being very, very exciting at the end. Kipruto won, but Matiso did gave it all, and that was quite a kick at the end there. 2:08:09 for both of them, and they both hit that tape or the crossing band, whatever that is, finish band, whatever that is called. It did not look like they had been running for 26 miles, that's for sure. Just a great race, really, really fun to watch. And I was thinking about it today when I was watching that I'm kind of sad that I found marathon running so late and that I didn't get to enjoy Kipchoge and his career. You know, like obviously I've been watching things now after I got into the marathon, but it would have been so much fun to be able to follow the sport more earlier on when he had his best races. So that is kind of a short recap of the New York Marathon. Kind of felt like I had to do that since this is called the Marathon Podcast. And just to give you a quick update on myself, today I had my first decent run in 6 weeks. That felt good. Feels like my body is finally letting this thing go. And I'm hoping that I can start building from here, and maybe I'll be able to do a progressive long run in Valencia in December. After all, I've kind of already realized that I'm not gonna race that, but hopefully I'll be good enough to have a proper long run there and start building towards Tokyo and Boston. So that's me. As you can see, my hair is super blonde. I was Ken for Halloween. That's gonna stay. And with that, I think we should just jump to the conversation with Sofie. Sofie, welcome to the Marathon Podcast. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you, and thank you so much for coming on. You started following me, and I saw your profile, and I was like, oh, I need to have you on the podcast because of your story. Before we start talking about, or I guess like your story is a part of your introduction, or when you're to present yourself. So maybe you can present yourself to the listeners before we start.
Sure. Let's see. So, Sofie Schunk. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And primarily, let's see, I grew up as a multi-sport athlete before I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which I think is primarily a lot about my story and why I got into running later in life. I was diagnosed with type 1 in high school. So that kind of changed my trajectory for sport in general. And so I actually played soccer in college, and I was a goalkeeper. It was a bit easier to manage my type 1 there. Before all the technology came out. And then eventually I met a cross-country runner in college at Marquette University where I studied, who also had type 1. And he's like, you can run with diabetes. Like, it's not that hard. And so he kind of taught me the ropes. I ended up studying biomedical engineering, which is where I learned. And actually, like, my thesis was on designing an artificial pancreas and kind of learning and tracking all the things that affect your blood sugar when it comes to exercise. So it was partly like studying myself, but also how to help others that want to be active with type 1. And eventually I ran my first half marathon, and then the group I was training with, they're like, you have to do a full marathon. And I kind of rolled my eyes at it. And then fast forward, I ended up running a full marathon. And then I think it all caught up with me. I went through the like off and on injury cycle that I never experienced by running in college. So my sister ran in college, but didn't learn that you can overtrain in running. So kind of went through that cycle, and eventually through a couple of failed attempts qualified for the Olympic Marathon Trials for 2024 with a 2:36. And recently I actually switched more to trail running, and so kind of loving trail running at the moment, and also have a nonprofit diabetes sports project that I support and also coach not full time because I have a full time day job as an engineer. So, yeah, so run training, coaching, trying to have a social life in between, and that's me.
Awesome. When you are saying all of this, and when I was looking through your Instagram profile, obviously you have your unique story, but totally regardless of that, 2:36, that is a crazy fast marathon. So like totally regardless of whatever challenges you've met, it's interesting to hear how you got there. When training for your first marathon, if we're talking a little bit about that first, so like your first marathon, how was that? Was that something that you at the time felt like this is very manageable, something that was easy to do, or were you very intimidated?
Great question. So I think the athlete in me of just like wanting to find something else hard to do and prove I can do it with diabetes, I think that kept me super motivated to do a marathon. Um, that said, I thought people that do marathons were absolutely crazy. And I remember doing my first 10-mile run ever and thinking like I deserved a bucket of ice cream because it was so far. And then, I mean, now like 10 miles is like a normal day for me, right? Like, um, so I think I was intimidated in the fact, like, I had no idea how it would affect my blood sugars from a diabetes standpoint. And the first like 18-mile run I did in that training block, I actually completely bonked. My blood sugar went low. I had to stop. Found myself like at a gas station with no money, needing to get a Gatorade, and had to go back and pay for it later. So just a lot of learning lessons. The next 20-mile run went a lot better. I prepared for it. I actually had support of one of the um team members that had type 1 who kinda got me into it, and so he helped me out for the next time, but a lot of, like, really hard, fast learning lessons, I would say, and then, I would say, like, especially as a coach now, I had, like, the best possible first marathon experience I could have, and so that's probably why I stuck with it, like, I actually my watch died at mile 2, and I think it probably was the best thing that coulda happened to me. I don't think I had planned on running, so I ran a 2:52 in my first marathon. And I think I was
Wow.
thinking, like, I wouldn't even get close to sub 3 hours, and, it was one of those things, like, I just kinda trusted myself, and I was in a good conversation with someone I was running next to, and just, like, my watch died, so I think if I had seen I was running faster than my goal pace, I probably woulda held myself back, but I felt fine. It was, like, a perfect weather day, and then I remember, like, going through, like, the first 5K in, like, 20 minutes, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm a little bit under pace," 'cause I knew in my head I should be, like, 21, 22 per 5K. And I'm like, "Well, we'll just go with it and see what happens," and I think when I got to mile 24, I expected that was the furthest I'd ever ran in my life, and I expected to just feel terrible, and I didn't, so I had a great first experience. I fueled a lot, my blood sugars were steady. Can't say that has always happened since then, and that's not a common first marathon experience, but it honestly got me hooked. And that was the day I found out about this whole, like, Olympic trials qualifying mark. So 2 of the girls, so I placed 3rd in that race. The 2 girls in front of me were trying to hit the 2:45. That's when the standard was 2:45 for 2020, or 2016. So this was in, like, 2016 timeframe. And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And then that's when I started jumping into a ton of miles, trying to get faster, and ended up just injured. So, yeah.
But when you crossed that finish line, 2:52, obviously a very good time. Was that like, did you feel like that was a very big victory? I mean, obviously you've been doing sports for a long time since you were diagnosed with diabetes, but was that still something that felt unrealistic because of that?
Uh, when you say unrealistic, do you mean, like, the time?
Well, the time, but also just running a marathon. Like, so I think that to a lot of people, kind of like what we talked about before, starting the recording, I think that a lot of people, if you're not familiar with it, you're like, okay, you're diagnosed with diabetes type 1, and okay, then I'm not running marathons. Like that.
You're told
If
no.
so, like I don't have a lot of knowledge about this. I'm gonna ask you more about all of this also in the conversation. But like, if it was me, I would probably be very bummed out, and I'll be like, "Oh, now I have to give up my running." And then I see you, and then I'm like, "Okay, I probably don't have to. And so I'm just curious if the marathon felt like an unrealistic thing for you or to you at the time when you did your first one.
Yeah, and I think, having a good experience that day, like, I still there was so much I had to learn, right? And since that first good experience, I had many that were just, like, so tough, and it almost made me wanna give up on the sport and just, like, really, really hard, like, mentally, physically, let alone, like, diabetes-wise. It did still feel, like, a bit unrealistic in terms of, like, it's something that was never really done before, but, I think I mentioned Diabetes Sports Project, so the other founder, of it 2 founders, Casey Boren and Eric Tozer, they were kind of my first mentors in type 1, and, like, they kind of showed that it is possible, even though you have all these people telling you it's not, like, the doctor's like, "Well, yeah, good luck, be careful," like, you could literally bonk and die or, like, have the now I experience a lot more high blood sugars, which almost feels worse than the low, even though it's not as dangerous in the moment, it just makes you feel, like, sick to your stomach, and then it makes fueling really hard on top of it, so I think in the regard that I was able to finish my first marathon in a 2:52, it all of a sudden became definitely not impossible, but the uncertainties of, like, "Okay, well, now what is it gonna take to get to that next level? How do you, like, really nail fueling and insulin delivery and all of those little things too?" Um, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
I want us to talk more about that, but I want to backtrack to when you first learned that you had it. That was in high school. Is that what you said?
Yep, high
Do,
school, which is good.
do you remember like how you were told when you got the message and how you felt?
Mhm. Yeah, so I love people's diagnosis stories for better or worse, that they're all so different, and mine is also very different. Most of the time, people are diagnosed with type 1 either as a baby, so it's historically called juvenile diabetes because you're diagnosed as a kid, and it runs in your family, or there's, like, this whole new, like, sector, like, you get diagnosed really late in life just because your pancreas kinda, like, peters out, but the, like, anomaly is around the age I was diagnosed, like, in high school, and usually, if you're diagnosed as a teen or young adult, it's because of, like, an autoimmune attack on your system, so we think I probably got, like, some weird virus or something, like so I got back from a vacation in Hawaii and had this, like, head to toe rash, and I guess there is a parasite, like, you can get in Hawaii that mimics insulin, and so then your body attacks but it also attacks all your good cells, and so that might have been what happened because it doesn't run in my family, whatever, like, whatsoever. Um but yeah, so I was in the middle of track season. I think I was playing track or running track, playing soccer, like back-to-back sports, school all day, and I just remember just being so fatigued and tired and like falling asleep in class and I'm like a 4.0 like type A student and just was falling asleep in class, not finishing my homework, which is uncharacteristic. And then sport all of a sudden became hard. Like my sophomore year of high school, I was, like, got 2nd in state in the 800, was running, like, a sub 2:20 800, and then, like, but, like, the beginning of my junior year and a sophomore year, I could barely run a 2:30, and, like, I remember doing a 400 and just having this terrible bloody nose and had no idea what was going on, and so we finally, like, went to the doctor, and they did a bunch of blood work. The doctor's like, "You're probably just growing because I had grown, like, a lot in that year. And I guess we didn't even put together the normal symptoms of diabetes, like you're drinking a ton of water, you're eating a lot, you're going to the bathroom all the time. Looking back on it, I had been eating, like, a jar of peanut butter a day and, like, losing weight, so I lost, like, 20 pounds. I'm like yeah, and so those are just characteristic symptoms of diabetes, but they actually lost my blood work, and then when they found it and saw my blood sugar was, like, 580, they immediately called my mom and was like, "Go get her out of school, like, take her to the hospital." And so she showed
So
up at
that
high school.
so is that like urgent? So when
Well, yeah, because normally you pass out from, DKA, which is diabetic ketoacidosis. So basically the extra sugar in your blood gets toxic, and you basically pass out and could have a seizure, which that didn't happen to me, and they think it's because I was burning enough of the extra glucose by doing, like, 3 sports a day. So I had been burning enough that it never got to a toxic level in my system. But once it does, like, that can happen. So that's why they're like, "Go get her
Okay.
and bring her in." And so when they brought me in, they looked at my mom and I like, "Wait, which one has type 1?" 'Cause I'm still just, like, chilling. Yeah, but I remember she had printed out, like, a bunch of, like, info sheets for me to read in the car, like, on our way to the hospital. I'm, like, reading through it, and I just immediately got excited, and she's like, "Why are you excited?" I'm like, "'Cause I know why I feel so bad." Like, 'cause I had been feeling bad for a while, and it was frustrating not knowing what was going on. So, yeah, so that I was excited in the fact that I knew I had a cure or, like, there's no cure, but a treatment plan. Realizing how intense that treatment plan would be, I think was the eye-opening part and, the hard part, but at least knowing why I felt terrible was enough of an excitement on the day I was diagnosed.
No, it totally makes sense. I have an autoimmune disease myself, and I was talking to
You
my brother the other day because he's not. It looks like he has it too, which is not a big surprise. But we were both
Well, yeah.
talking about how we were talking about how good it is that because what it is for us is that like our bones are fusing. It's called ankylosing spondylitis, and so it sucks. But now that we have medicine for it, it's not
Yes.
that big of a problem. I'm able to live my life normally, so it's not bothering me. But we were talking about how if you have something and you can't figure out what it is, if you can't recognize that, okay, this is what it is, you can just get the medication here, you'll be fine. Then it just becomes such a frustrating situation, right? Like if it wasn't this for you either, and you just had to live with being tired all the time and your body not working, that is also frustrating. But I assume that that excitement might have just been very temporary at the time. Like, what year was this?
2008.
2008. So you did say something about technology coming much further today
Mhm.
than it had that time. And how much information were you provided with, and like how did you look at the future after being diagnosed and getting the information that you got at the time? So for a year and a half, I've been using AG1 in the mornings, and I feel like that's a great way to start the day. One thing is that the product is good. The other thing is that I feel like that is a commitment to my health and commitment to trying to stay healthy the rest of the day. So I have no partnership or collab with them whatsoever. I'm wearing the hat because I love the hat, but I also have kind of a referral link that I can use, and it will help me pay for my own AG1. You can get that by using the link down in the show notes, and you'll get 15 euros. I'm not sure if that equals $15, whatever that is, but 15 euros off on your first order. Back to the episode.
Yeah, so luckily I had a really good endocrinologist and very like forward thinking. And then my CDE, my certified diabetes educator, was also an athlete and runner. Like while she didn't have type 1, she understood that okay, like we can get you back. It's just going to take some time. It's going to take very diligent treatment and knowledge of your blood sugars. And so at the time, I didn't have a CGM. So like now I have a CGM that goes to my phone and I wear it on my arm. So I'll show you. Um, although my blood sugar is not great right now, but yeah, so it's on my phone, and so I can like see what the numbers are, and it's
Mm-hmm.
attached to my phone. Yeah, so like this didn't exist when I was diagnosed. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
you're right.
attached,
I've seen
and
that
it's
one. Yeah.
continuously like telling me what my blood sugars are. Um, so I was having a finger prick for one, and then they gave me like a vial of insulin and like this big needle. Now I don't have it on me, but it's like a little pen looking thing and just like a mini shot, like micro shot. I don't wear a pump. Many people do. I've considered one for certain things, but yeah, so the technology, especially CGM, has come a long way, and that's actually the company I just went back to, and I work there now again. It's Dexcom. Um, but yeah, they gave me a vial of insulin and finger pricks, and I remember, like, they were supposed to keep me overnight at the hospital, just standard, but they didn't have enough beds, so they sent me home, and they're like, "Okay, when you eat 15 grams of carbs, you have to take 1 unit of insulin." And so I remember eating a pear. I was starving when I got home, and my blood sugar went from, like, 80 to 400, and I was like, I can't even eat a pear without insulin, and just like started crying, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a long learning lesson. Um, but yeah, so the management from that day on was eye-opening, but I'm such a data-driven person anyways. It was manageable, except for you don't realize, like, the cognitive load it takes until you're, like, 6 months down the road. Like, at first, it was exciting, like, "Let's figure out how to make myself feel better." But then to stay on top of that, like, day in, day out, I mean, I think a research paper came out, like, recently that type 1s have to make 180 extra decisions a day, on top of, like, your day-to-day job. So it's just, like, you're always on, you can't shut off. And that's the hard part that you don't realize till, like, you've had it for years, right? Um, that being said, I think, the other tough part about high school was, like, so you lose all the weight before you're diagnosed because 'cause you're basically not absorbing anything you're eating. That's the symptom of diabetes, like, when you don't have insulin, that's how you get your carbs into your system. And so then when you start taking insulin, you gain it all back. And so as a high school female, it's like, oh, now, like, my body's changing when I don't want it to. I'm trying to get back into sport and not take time off. And so that's where I just chose to stick with soccer a bit. I still ran, but soccer seemed a bit more manageable, and, I was able to get recruited to play Division I soccer at Marquette University, and, um proud of that to this day, and I think the technology really helped meeting people that also, like, had type 1 helped, um, but kinda redefining that it is possible and making sure, like, it's interesting because my head coach, I didn't necessarily market that I was type 1 because, like, head coaches, they'll think of it as a liability, like, "Well, we can't put you on the soccer field, if your blood sugar goes low or high," right? And so then they, like, get more inclined not to play you, and it's this, like, political battle of it. So while we didn't, like, fully market it to my head coach, my athletic trainer was, like, fully on board, and she would kinda watch my blood sugars and make sure I was testing often enough, and we had the system. She'd, like, dilute my Gatorade so I wasn't drinking, like, full sugar Gatorade. I had my own bottles, and so you just kinda have to get people in your corner, to make progress too. It's not just the technology.
But did it feel, or was it really hard for you to give up running at the time?
It was, and I think to this day, I wonder if I ran in college, like, what I could have done. But at the same time, I think I now appreciate and I love running more now because I had to give it up for some time, and learn. And now I hope no one else that's diagnosed has to give up running, and that's kind of part of my mission and what I wanna do and give back to the community through, like, DSP and just awareness even on, like, social media and other platforms. But I do think giving up the sport or, it's not like I gave it up, I just had to adjust my goals and, come back to it on its own time. I think that's why I love it so much now. So
Yeah, and then you mentioned that someone told you that, but you can run with this. Like that's not an issue. Do you remember the feeling you got when who was it that said that to you?
yeah, so, a couple people. So I met, someone on the cross country team at Marquette who had type 1, and then one of the faculty members at Marquette was diagnosed late in life with type 1, and he was an Ironman athlete prior to diagnosis, and then he did an Ironman with diagnosis, and so he's the guy who kinda wrote me into my first 18-mile run and then made me run a marathon. Made me run a
Okay,
marathon.
yeah. But did you
Yeah.
believe him when or the people telling you that you were able to run? Because then it had been a few years, I guess, of kind of thinking that this was not going to be possible. Was it believable when they told you?
Yeah, I think as I saw that they did it and they have learned the management, and I think now fast forward, I had made it through playing a collegiate sport, and was able to do, like, 2 to 3 workouts a day and not completely crash and burn, and, while it was a little bit more manageable because it's stop and go and you can have, like, stuff closer to you than when you're going on, like, a 3-hour run, but, yeah, I think meeting those people and then knowing I'd made it through playing a college sport with type 1, like, it became possible.
And how did it go about after that then? Was it like, okay, then I'm gonna go for a run immediately? Like then I'm gonna start doing this? Was it like the day after you were signing up for something, or how long did it
Um,
take until you were back at it?
I'm not a no person. I say yes to too many things. So, while I think I just jumped into it. I remember knowing, like, college soccer was coming to an end, and I walked up to our university president who had the run club and was like, "Hey, I need something else. And, I need another challenge." And, running seemed like the next challenge, and it actually is a way that you can manage your blood sugars. Obviously I choose to do hard things, and so while running can help manage my blood sugars, it also can make my blood sugars tank or go too high. It's easier not to run for sure, but, I think I'd go crazy without it now. Yeah, so I just jumped right into it, and they were all running a half marathon. I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And then like, "Okay, now you have to sign up for a full marathon," and that's when I was kinda like, "Hell no," and then we see how that went. So, yeah.
It's cool to hear, and I hope that just already within the first 22 minutes here that people are, you know, if there are anyone finding themselves in the same situation, or even people who are like, what if this happens to me, right? Because I think that there are a lot of situations in life
Mhm.
where you're like, what if that happens to me?
Mhm.
That would completely change my life. And it's, I mean, honestly, it feels good for me too to hear what you're saying because it gives hope. So that's really really good. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I think the biggest lesson I tell people is it doesn't happen overnight. Like, no success happens overnight. I mean, people see I've run a 2:36. I'm like, that was probably 6 years of work building into that. I think you can do it sooner than that, but, like, it's not overnight, and I think that's the hardest thing for people to grasp is, like, it's you want success early, and, like, while you might have some mini successes, the overall learning and, like collective of everything, like, and finding new, like, little creative ways on how to, like, hold yourself accountable, and, like, for me, like, I can't quit on my diabetes. I have to check my blood sugar every 5 minutes and take insulin every time I eat. Like, I can't quit on my diabetes, so, like, why would I quit on training? And, um, it kinda gives you more of a why, and I think it's not just, like, type 1s that go through things that are hard, like, you have your own autoimmune, which I'm sure there's good and bad days, like, even though there's medication, same with us, like, insulin is supposed to treat it, but, like, there's days where stress just drives your blood sugar high, insulin doesn't seem to be working, you're sick, and, like, your blood sugars just don't come down. You have a low even though you've, like, eaten the same thing you always eat, and it's just unpredictable, and I think that goes for people without diabetes too, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I have mornings where I wake up and I can, my chest is just so tight that I don't know what to do. And like, but like you said, it's like mostly it's fine. And so that is the difference, right? I had years of not being able to run because of this, and now I'm able to run. So that is where the difference is. Um, but if you were to give, for those of us who are not familiar with you was it 180 decisions more that you said that you had to make? Uh,
Mhm.
If you were to give us a very short kind of insight into what it's like, and as an athlete, what kind of challenges is it that you'll face? I'm sure you've gotten used to it, but I'm sure there is still, it's like there are days like you said where you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to deal with this at all. It would have been so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for the listeners to kind of understand what you have to do and what you're going through.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's hard to translate to words or to tell people is, like, I hate being one to flake, like, when I'm commit to work out with someone or run with someone, but sometimes I wake up and I've either had, like, a low blood sugar overnight, which, especially when I get into, like, the meat of high volume training, and I haven't adjusted my, like, long acting insulin, which is, like, my base insulin, I can have these things called low blood sugars at night, which is, like, the equivalent of if you were to bonk in a race or just have no, like, glycogen stores, like, nothing left, and so you're basically running on fumes, and if that happens overnight, um, 1, it's dangerous for someone like myself because uh, like, that's when you could have, like, a seizure, for instance, but you also now wake up feeling depleted, and if you have a run planned or a workout planned, you're already starting behind, right, in terms of fueling, And it's just because like our bodies can't produce extra glucose naturally, right? We have to take it, and then we have to take insulin on top of that to absorb that glucose. So fueling now becomes like that much more important. And like when you're shifted on that, like then all of a sudden you have to adapt to intensity on workouts. I can't just run first thing in the morning without food. I've got to make sure I'm up in time to get a breakfast. So it's more like the timing of everything matters so much more, or like I have to delay a run. And that's like the frustrating thing, but I will always get it in, right? But I can't always commit to like first thing in the morning depending on what my blood sugars have done overnight. That said, some days it's perfect and cool. I can go for that 5 a.m. run and we're good to go. And it's those days like you're thankful for, and then you can actually do a workout just exactly as planned. The other thing that most people don't realize is they assume running brings down your blood sugar, like you burn glucose, which you do, but, with type 1, there's a whole other side of it where there's, like, an adrenaline response. So now that I've gotten into higher level racing and, like, track workouts and speed sessions, my blood sugar can actually go up, which is very counterintuitive to what you're told exercise does in terms of diabetes. And so factoring in different types of racing and workouts and the fact that I actually might need more insulin on a race day, which is just wild, that is another like big decision that like I have to make as an athlete and prepare for it in training. Because if my blood sugar is too high, basically like you're starting dehydrated because all that water in your muscle is now going to your blood to try to dilute the high blood sugar. So you could cramp, you could feel just like lethargic. I feel like just a blob when my blood sugar's high. And so it's more like the feelings associated with it. And so just making sure you're in that range. But I think biggest tip to me is like we smartly you can push through any blood sugar. Like no blood sugar is a bad blood sugar. It's what you do about it. So
Yeah, because when we first started talking, and I think this is kind of the same naive thing that I had about my own little disease, is that my dad has it. So when I was a kid, he would just simplify it so much, because there are certain food items that are really bad for me. So like oats and rice, for instance, super weird, but that is something that I have to stay away from. But for my dad, it was some different things. It was like chocolate, coffee, red meat,
ah,
and as a kid,
like you just need my
sorry.
three foods.
Yeah. No, so but the thing was that when I was a kid, I thought like, oh, you just have to be healthy, because he told me, oh yeah, I just have to stay away from red meat, chocolate, and coffee. And I was like, okay, I don't drink coffee. Chocolate is unhealthy. Yeah, and also you have to stay active. So I was like, great. I remember at some point I actually said that I was hoping that I would get it because that would force me to be healthy, and that was super stupid, right? But then I think I had the same naive thought process when you were talking about this in the beginning, because I was like, I didn't think of it as being like an advantage or anything, but my first thought was, oh, but maybe you are then better at fueling because you have more knowledge about it. But by the sounds of it, it sounds like the mechanisms are not necessarily it works a bit the opposite. So when you are competing, like say during a marathon, one thing is what you have to do beforehand, like you said, with the adrenaline and stuff. But what about during that race? I assume that it's not enough for you to just focus on how many gels and when to take them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think to your point, like I can eat anything as a type 1, right? Like there's no food off limits. I just have to take insulin for it. But that said, there are easier carbs to manage than others, right? Like I choose whole, well, like, for instance, sourdough bread over white bread, because sourdough bread has a natural fiber and probiotic, and it actually digests slower. So anything that digests slower does not spike your blood sugar as much. And so I tend to aim for like pairing high carbs with proteins and fats. So like a banana and peanut butter. I actually stay away from bananas. Fun fact, because they just completely spike my blood sugar. They're pure sugar, even if they have some nutrition in it. If I'm low, it's a great, great snack. But like you can do things like pairing a banana with almond butter or something like that, and it slows down the absorption. So then you're not getting these spikes, and then you're not having to take as much insulin. So it's definitely like very strategic. And I think in terms of your point that maybe it's an advantage, in a way, I know what certain foods and fuel do to my blood sugar, and so I can use that to my advantage during race day when I know I'm gonna have spikes. The weird thing is, like, for marathons, and now I'm doing 50Ks, like, you need carbs. Like, I can't not go without carbs no matter what, like, hands down. So I tend to, like, err on a bigger breakfast because that's something I can control and take insulin with. And then during my race, even though, like, I'm gonna be having higher carb things, I tend to make it, like, spread out, and so that helps it not be like spike, tank, spike, tank. It's more like a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, so you're more baseline flat in terms of, like, eating to what I'm burning versus, like, overcompensating and then, like, crashing, right? So, and I tend to stick to more to, like, solid foods. I just use things like gummy bears. They have a little protein in them. I like the UCAN gels because they're a little bit slower absorbing. They still spike me though. I do tend to drink carbs if I have to, especially during 50K. So I'll do like the Scratch Labs, which is a little bit more natural. I use these things called Date Fix, which are pure dates. So I tend to stick to simpler, predictable sugars that don't have a lot of additives.
When you're talking about this, it just makes me realize that you know so much about all these these products or like or food items, whatever it is. You know so much about it. Do you think that the ones of us that don't deal with this on a daily basis, that we have a lot to learn about that, or is that a completely different kind of knowledge because that affects your blood sugar in a different way than it does with, say, mine?
It's a great question. So I think the blood sugar is probably affected similarly, but your body can produce insulin in the amount it needs to counteract that sugar source, right? Whereas mine can't. Like, I have to take the insulin on my like separately on my own to account for that carb. And so my decisions are based on, like, I want to minimize how much insulin I have on board during my race. Whereas you all don't necessarily have to think about that, but, like, it is gonna be the same effect on the body physically. And so I tell my athletes that obviously don't have type 1 that you just need to fuel during your race. I think the frequency, the more often and not waiting till it's too late can benefit anyone. But, like, in terms of choosing what you want to eat, whether it be gels, drinking, chews, it's you have more freedom and flexibility, right? Like, whatever you're looking forward to eating and what you're actually gonna eat is probably the right fuel. Like, you just gotta get something in. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, there's not wrong fuels out there, but, like, you need to choose something that works for you that you look forward to.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, there was a video of um, career before the Chicago Marathon where he was just eating sugar. Like I think it was Clayton Young who was
From
filming him,
source.
and he was asking him what he was doing, and I don't know if he was pouring it into coffee or tea, but there was like huge amounts of sugar, and he was like, why are you doing this? Is this intentional for the race? And then he was like, nah, I just love sugar. But it still makes me think, when you're talking about this, especially when you brought up the banana example, that just spikes it. And I mean, in some, I guess in some ways you could say that, okay, then that's great for me because since my body is working, call it normally, then maybe I do want that. But it's still kind of hard. I feel like we probably don't know as much about the different food in terms of what that does to our body compared to something else. So you might think that, oh, this gives the same effect to the body, and there
Mhm.
are two different foods, and you will know then that no, that one will do this to your body and this will do this to your body, and I might not react to it in the way that you obviously would have, but that's probably something that we all could have learned from.
Yeah, and I think the banana example is a good one because my sister, case in point, like, she's not type 1, but she used to just have a banana before, like, her 5K college meets, like, cross country meets, and then she'd call me and be like, "I felt like I, like, almost completely bonked at the end of my race." And I'm like, well, what are you eating before? She's like, just a banana. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I think what was happening to her, one probably wasn't enough, but like two, her blood sugar is still probably spiking, and I actually put a CGM on her because I had some extra, and like her blood sugar spikes with the banana, and then her body also can predict it's about to go run a 5K, so it probably gives her insulin for the banana, and she actually crashes because maybe she's hypersensitive to insulin. Not everyone's going to be in that camp, but like if your body's taking insulin or producing insulin for that banana and it doesn't know you're gonna be running, it's probably too much. And that's something, like, I have to adapt on my own, because I know I'm gonna be running, so I don't wanna take as much insulin because you all of a sudden get sensitive. So for her, it was more like, "Oh, like, eat more." So she would do, like, Ezekiel toast with the banana and some peanut butter, and then it seemed to, like, help a lot. But
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and it kind of makes me think that someone like yourself, and maybe you're already doing it, but regardless of athletes having type 1, you should kind of talk to people like athletes all levels about this, just to for us to be more aware of it, because I think that sometimes it's also easy to say, like your sister, she was bonking and it's like, oh, it's just a bad day,
mhm.
or
Yeah, you
just
don't know.
something else, and you don't know.
Mhm.
Was then you are immediately asking, well, what are you eating? Because that is probably your go-to thought,
Right.
right? And maybe you're probably more extreme on that way because you are thinking about that. But that's the same with me. Whenever someone says that they're, oh, my back is hurting or my hip is hurting, I'm like, oh,
You only
have you checked yourself for this? And it might just be that they lifted some tires the day before and they got something, but pulled a muscle or whatever. But sometimes it's useful too.
Yeah, for sure. I
So
like your
last
hat, by
thing,
I
sorry.
like your hat, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so last question on like or probably not the last question, but one question before we start talking more about the your training and your running. Is it an Aura ring that you're wearing, or some
Yeah.
kind of Yeah. So
Yeah.
is that also something that is helpful for you with type 1? Can you use that or utilize that somehow?
Well, great question. So, I probably have a biased answer to this because my company Dexcom is actually pairing to it, the CGM company, but I'm bugged by them and they're gonna kill me if they hear me say this, but they're only doing it for the people who are pre-diabetic on like our Stelo, like over the counter CGM, not the one that's for people with diabetes. So I'm like, why? Like it absolutely like they go hand in hand. And I think part of it is a claims thing and like medical safety, which I totally respect. But yeah, so the Aura Ring, I think another thing that my type ones listening or whatever will know is like we just lose sleep, whether it be from our alarm going off in the middle of the night, so like the low blood sugars. My alarm will go off if I'm below 70 and I'll have to get up and maybe eat something. And then when you have to eat something in the middle of the night, you just don't go back to sleep in the same capacity. Or you're like running a little high and you're just restless. Like whenever my blood sugar is high and I go to bed, um, just have the weirdest wireless dreams. So it does affect sleep for sure. And I think the Oura Ring helps me kind of correlate that to what my blood sugars have been doing. And also just in terms of like your overall stress score. I think I mentioned earlier, like the adrenaline stress of races can drive my blood sugar up, but it's similar in terms of like work meetings, like stressful presentations, just other personal life stress. Like, so the stress scores start to matter too in terms of diabetes. I kind of treat them separately, but it is a good way to correlate like if something else is going on under the surface, and now I can kind of explain why my blood sugars might be higher or lower than normal, if that makes sense. So
No, that totally makes sense, and I'm glad I asked, because then you also talked about the sleep part of this, and honestly, like out of all of the things that you've been talking about, that to me seems like the worst part. That there's an alarm going off, you have to get up. How
it's
often do you have to do that? I'm sure that's like different from person to person, but
mm,
yeah.
It's so, like, lately it's been better, and I think it's because I've kinda well, I just had a big race, and so I'm back to, like, my homeostasis, but, like, whenever my training volume increases, I immediately start to have lows overnight, and so until, like, I can adjust my insulin down and take less and then up my carbs a bit, like, strategically before bed until I get that balance right, like, it's almost every night.
Wow.
But it's I would say probably once or twice a week. And usually it's not bad enough that I have to eat something, but I just keep, like, honey packets or, like, little gummy bear stuff by my bed and, just don't wanna wake up low because, like I said, if I'm waking up low, it affects my run in the morning. I have to get a breakfast in before I run. So, yeah. But it's definitely different from person to person, and I have to say, like, that's one thing I've mastered over the last couple years, so I do finally, like, get to sleep a full 8 or 9 hours if I want it. But it
That's
is
great to
frustrating.
hear.
It is not a quiet alarm because it is dangerous if you were to go low at night.
But is it all also kind of possible to train yourself to then be like, okay, you get up, you do this, and you go back to sleep. So you get better at also, like, even when it happens, to actually be
Mm.
able to go back to sleep faster.
Yes and no. I mean, it's just the same as if you were to wake up in the middle of the night, like, right,
Yeah,
for
because I
whatever.
hate when that happens.
I
If I
know.
wake up, especially if it happens like a couple of hours after, then I usually just lie awake for an hour or two, and that sucks.
Yeah. The worst is when it's, like, an hour before your alarm, and you're like, "Okay, well, I could eat something, lay back in bed, and then it goes off." Like, I have to wake up anyways. Um, so,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I think I've definitely gotten better at, like, taking care of it and going back to sleep, but it also depends at what point in the night is it throwing me off, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That just makes this all more impressive because uh, we talked about your first marathon. We also touched on, the Olympic trials qualification time that you made, and 2:36, a very fast marathon. Will you say something about the training and everything that you had to do leading up to that? And because I would say that 2:52, it's amazing, but then when you get down to 2:36, we're starting to talk such high performances, and then we're talking more, marginal gains and all of that, and you are dealing with this, whether that is affecting your sleep or, when you can run days where you might have to adjust and all of that. Can you just say something about how that block and that build was?
Yeah, good question. So, let's see. Let me go back to January 2023 was kind of when I first even decided to go for it, and I only had 8 months to qualify because I think the window closed December. So I guess a full year basically. But yeah, so January 2023, I kind of ran a half marathon PR like out of the blue in the middle of ski season, not like fully training for it. And my coach and I kind of like, all right, we've got to go for Olympic trials, the 236. Like, do you want to just commit to it and go for it? And I was like, let's do it. Um, and so we made like a commitment that day, started putting a plan in place. I was gonna go for it at Grandma's Marathon that June. Um, Turns out, like, I got overly excited and got really fit too quick, so I think I peaked in April when I, ran my 5K PR at Carlsbad 5,000. I ended up winning the open race at Carlsbad 5,000 in San Diego, and we kinda like, "Alright, you're fit now," like, but I had still 2 more months to June to maintain it, which was fine, but then I started getting, like, some sciatica, like, work got really stressful, I, like, was going through, like, some personal stuff, I think I sold my house, like, all these little things. Um, so while I think I had a really strong block, we learned really quickly, okay, like, I've gotta take care of, like, outside stress and, like, actually focus on sleep, actually focusing on recovery. How can I, like, taper down work so that I'm, like, just getting my job done, but I'm able to, like, recover and get these big runs in? Because at 2:36 from a 2:52 is a really big drop, and I hadn't ran a marathon since that 2:52. So that was 2019 or 2017, and then fast forward to 2023, like, I hadn't run a marathon in a while, right? And so, ended up not starting Grandma's, and we took, like, a month of just, like, downtime to, like, reset my body, Fortunately, they came up with the New York race, the McCurdy Micro Race in October, and they were gearing it around people that wanted to get the Olympic Trials qualifying standard. So we're like, sweet, signed up for that right away. October is the new goal.
That's the one where you do a lot of loops, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think like now in hindsight, I don't think it fits who I am as an athlete. Like I personally like some hills. I love strength training. That's a whole nother thing. I think I mastered it, like dialed in strength training. I think I was over strength training. So I was just overdoing everything. And then we really just needed to focus it down. Turns out I took that block that was like imperfect. And then we had like the most perfect block for October. I think I hit like 85-mile weeks. I nailed every workout at the sub 6-minute pace. Like, could not have gone more perfect. And I got fueling down. The one thing we didn't practice was what would happen if my blood sugar spiked. And that's exactly what happened on that race day. And we never were able to like replicate it in training. Um, so come that New York race, I did everything perfect, right? Like it was one of those like the track workouts are great. Like everything was spot on. I was like, this is gonna have to be taken away from me. And it's always those days that humble you the best. Like so I had bottles every lap. My family came out. Um, I felt amazing for 18 miles. It was right under pace, probably 2 under pace. Like I think we were like I was with the 2:35 pace group, but it felt really manageable. All of a sudden, my friend had my, like, CGM, and he's like, "Your blood sugar is 280." And I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, it's supposed to be under 200. Um, and I was like, "That's okay. It's only, like, 6 more miles. Like, I can last for 6 more miles with a high blood sugar." But then, like, after the next loop, I remember, like, drinking my carb drink, and it spiked me higher, and I didn't have any water. I only had carbs because I thought I was gonna need carbs at that point. And then I just immediately started cramping from the high blood sugars. And so the last like 4 miles was like a complete slog. I thought I wasn't going to finish. Everything was cramping. It went from like amazing to not. And it was just such a bummer. I ended up still running a 2:42, which I had to celebrate because it was a huge PR, right? I still PR'd. I still got under the old standard of 2:45, but I was sitting at dinner that night with my friend and parents, and um, they were just like, "You're gonna go for it again, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yep." And so I signed up for CIM, and so that would have been 6 weeks later. And so, like, I knew it was literally just the diabetes that day that held me back. I knew I was fit enough. I saw the other girls, like, qualify. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go for this." So that next 6 weeks, I was like, "Alright, we need, like, at least another 20-mile long run in there with, like, 10 miles at pace, some track workouts." Um, Put together a plan with my coach. Great, like, let's do this. Started training again, and I just did not feel great. And it was one of those, like, I just had to start adapting, like, going on effort. I wasn't injured or anything, so I was like, we can still do this. But I just remember nothing feeling that great. And then, like, come Thanksgiving week, I, like, had we all went up to Colorado for my family, and I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna have a couple of glasses of wine, like, if it happens at CIM, it does, like, I'm just gonna enjoy it, like, that's our last chance." I got an infection on my CGM, the thing I just showed you, like, I just got a massive infection under my skin, so then I had to be on antibiotics. The antibiotics were ending, like, the day of CIM, so I'm like, "Well, it is what it is." Just adapted the workouts, got the work done, like, showed up at CIM, and I'm like, "I don't even know how I feel," like, warmed up, um actually, like, ran into someone from my high school at the start. It was kinda like this cool, like, big circle moment, and then I'm like, "Well, might as well just go for it." So, I started with the pace. I actually wasn't even in the elite seed, and so I started behind the group that was going for the 2:37, probably for the best, and just kinda, like, stuck in it. I didn't feel great the first 10 miles, but the pace was something I trained for a year at that point, so I'm like, "Just keep going," and then started fueling. I took insulin this time before, knowing I had those blood sugar spikes, so I took more insulin than I'm used to. Um, Stuck to my fuel plan, and, like, by mile 15, I was feeling incredible, and it was just one of those really cool moments, and I went from, like, 150th place to, like, the official was counting up like 10th, 12th, or 11th, 12th place female. And I was like, wait, what? Like, when did I pass all these people? I just had been like running and enjoying it and just kind of reflecting on everything. And yeah, I turned the corner at like 235 high, and you can see the end of of CM, and it just is like I knew I did it. I was like, this is pretty sick. So
Wow.
it was like wasn't a perfect build between New York and CIM, and it was almost, I think, the best thing. Like, it kinda humbles you that, like, things are gonna happen and you have to be ready for them to happen. I don't think I was for New York. So,
But
kind of
that feeling. So I've talked to some others on the pod, and I kind of had this moment in Boston this spring where like I've had a lot of things happening in my life where it's just
Mhm.
like there was part of me when I was running down Boylston, I was like, you know, everything that happened in my life has kind of just led me to this moment. Not necessarily because that was the performance of my life, but just because it was a very special moment.
Yeah.
And I would assume that it was a very special moment for you as well. And with everything that you've experienced, or the challenges, obviously big challenges, life changing things happening to you, uh,
Mhm.
how was that? How did that taste?
It wa I'm wondering if you've had the same experience. It was like this weird quiet calm, like, you just did something you'd, like, only dreamed of doing, and it just was, like, cool. But, like, also it was, like, the summation of all of the hard days and, like, work that, like, built up to it, but it was, like, this overwhelming, like, relief of, like, just excitement. And I think it was one of those weird ones because, like, my family had obviously traveled to New York, and they saw, like, the tough day, and they weren't able to make it to CAM, so I was, like, a little bit bummed, but then I FaceTimed them right after, and they had been following, obviously tracking it, and they were just so excited. And, um it was just, like, that culmination of, like, you have to just give yourself that next opportunity because it might be that one that's, like, this pinnacle of, like, everything coming together, even if it, like you said, it's not the perfect day, but Boston's a hard course. Like, it's like things come together and, like, you just know you've made that next step in life, like, and overcome obstacles. And I think people are they shy away from overcoming hard things, and I think when you do, and especially have a decent, like, good day on a not perfect day, that's what matters. Because honestly, life's not perfect, right? Like, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's nice. But
Yeah.
then finishing 236 Olympic Trial Qualifier, and with type 1, did you get more attention? Because I assume that everyone in any race who runs like an Olympic trial qualifier, you will get some attention. People will be impressed and cheer you on. But after, I did see that you had like an article. I don't know where it was in some magazine, but were there a lot of people or a lot of attention around you, your running, and type 1?
Yeah, I think surprisingly, like, I still had to, like, go out and tell my story and not be shy about it, right? And fortunately, I have a lot of friends in my corner that have connections and are like, "This story needs to be told." And, like, New Mexico, our USATF here, like, it's the first time since, I think, 2012 anyone's qualified for Olympic trials, so they, like, fortunately made a big deal about it. And my friend Mary, who I think the article you probably saw is, like, me hugging her, and that was the Runners World one. Like, they were trying to do an effort on all of the females that qualified for Olympic trials. So my story did get out there and definitely got some momentum with it all. I think knowing I wasn't gonna make the Olympic team because I qualified right before was like, I always wanna go back and see how I can actually compete because it was a tough day at trials itself. But it was the first step in, like, getting my name out there. Not that that's my intention, it's more like, "Hey, like, let's get more people wanting to push through hard things and see what they actually can do." Because, like, shoot, 7 years ago, there's no way I would think I'd be running a 2:36 marathon, like, ever, let alone a marathon, right? So, and just, like, you have to start from somewhere, and you never know your cap till you actually put the work in. So
Exactly. And I think that that last sentence that you're saying is it's so important for everyone, right? I've been talking to some people about this the ceiling that we use the term, like I think that's my ceiling, right? And we have no idea if that's our ceiling. Like I don't understand
watches
why.
too, like they're like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be running this pace," and so you slow down, but it's like maybe you
Yeah.
can't. You don't
Yeah,
know until
exactly. No,
you
that's
could blow
okay.
up. Like I've definitely had those days. That's the only
Yeah,
problem with like, taking a risk is like you are now risking blowing up, but you have to not be
yeah.
afraid of him.
So after that race, what happened in terms of your own running? Were you then more motivated to keep going and keep chasing better times? And you did mention that you now are switching more to the trails, but how was it just the weeks, months after?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone goes through like after a big thing like that, some post-race blues and reflection and like what's next. That's definitely real, especially then. So I did run in Olympic trials. I actually was slightly injured and I used Olympic trials as like a kind of a victory lap and just like got to meet so many cool people, got to live like a pro for a few days. It was really cool and exciting and just knowing like I had to put in so much work to get there, like that was awesome. I think the competitive side of me wants to be able to compete at an Olympic trials for an Olympic team, not just get there. And so it was a little bit frustrating having to change my mindset and just enjoy it and enjoy all the work I put in and that I can do that and be there, right? And so I think I do still have a plan to qualify for Olympic trials for this next cycle for 2028 and I actually am signed up for a marathon in December. And so still deciding on that because I just had a 50K trail race, but the next couple of years, like, that is something I'm gonna put my sights on is getting back to Olympic trials in a competitive state. I've learned a lot about myself. I think the biggest things I did post this big result was less on, like, my personal, like, time goals, but more on just making myself a better athlete and being able to handle more volume. So now I'm running volume that broke me 5 years ago. And I'm doing that as, like, just my weekly mileage. So now, like, my cap is higher there because I've learned the resilience. I've learned when to take easy runs, stupid easy, like, to go on the trails and just enjoy, like, a double run with my dog who's not the fastest right now. Like, it's just those little things that actually add up and matter, and then adding the strength training, actually getting sleep. Um, I am working, like, fully remote now, so, like, that allows me to get a little extra, like, recovery and flexibility in my schedule. Again, not an easy transition, right? Like, I also love my job and I like working, but at some point, like, you have to focus on yourself too. And I've had to, like, unfortunately not take on as many athletes as I want to because I have to preserve my time too. But yeah, so all that to say, I did actually start hopping into some trail races and just placed 3rd at Kodiak 50K, like, 10 days ago, which is a world major, so I'll
Congrats.
thank you. I'll be going to UTMB next year, which that'll be an A race. Probably still wanna keep my road stuff in there because I just love, like, road speed and road racing, but, exploring opportunities 'cause it's not like I'm not a pro athlete, like, yet. I think I do wanna consider it and I'm trying to have those conversations. Easier said than done, like, it's just hard to get anything these days, but, it also allows me the flexibility to just, like, have fun and try to compete against the best, and I have, my own career too to fall back on, so, yeah.
You know, it's hard to not think about how old were you when you were diagnosed? Because I was in high school, like 17 or
Mhm.
something, or yeah. It's hard to not think about that 17-year-old girl who was
Mhm.
told that she got that, and
Yeah,
then now you talking about this. Uh,
right.
how is that for you? Is that something that kind of just happens slowly, so now you're just used to it, or do you still have some pinch me moments where you're like, I can't believe that I'm able to do this?
Definitely have some of those moments, and I think I never would have thought I'd be here, right? Like, and having, like, these conversations and getting to be on podcasts and tell my story, like, it's really freaking cool. I think looking back on that, I wish I had the resources then, that are out there now, and, like, I do wanna find, like, people in my boat, like, 17 years ago. It's actually almost like, I think I've had diabetes half my life now. So, like, 16, 17 years ago in high school getting diagnosed that are, like, now so uncomfortable in their skin, like, they're having to, like, learn diabetes while they're in high school. It was, like, the worst 4 years of my life. I hated high school, and that's when, like, so many people love high school, and I'm like, I just hated it because I had this thing I had to deal with and didn't know if I'd be able to, like, be the athlete I wanted to be, and you just question everything when you're already questioning everything, and so to be able to, like, use my story now and hopefully tell others that they're gonna be okay, and there's gonna be hard days, like, you have to push through hard things. I think reflecting on that, it's cool. It is definitely, like, a pinch me moment because 'cause I've come, like, full circle, it seems like, so, yeah.
Yeah, what would you say to someone 17 or not, but like what would you say to someone who was just diagnosed and who wants to be active?
To just show up and, like, learn, and be flexible. I think, like, lose sight of being a perfectionist, and as a perfectionist myself, like, it's the hardest thing to do. Like, you're gonna have bad days. You're also gonna have great days, and so I think it's really to just not quit on yourself and to find people that can hold you accountable. Like, you need, like, a good cop, bad cop person in your life. Someone who's gonna be like, "You're fine, like, keep pushing through it." And then someone who's, like, gonna just give you a hug when you need it, and I think until I let other people into what I was going through, it was really hard to do it alone, and there's still a lot of alone days, right? But, until you kinda start building your crew, it's hard to get to that next step, and it's an isolating disease, 100%. So
Yeah, can imagine. I remember someone told me at some point, they're like, you have to stop thinking that, oh, they're so lucky because they don't have this,
yeah,
like
everyone's
and
going through but, like, yeah.
I'm not sure if he told me that to like to kind of tell me that it's probably not always gonna be like this, or if he told me that to kind of just tell me that that's not gonna serve you to think like that. But it's still, I think it's hard to not think like that sometimes. But I do understand what you mean about the isolating part, because I think that whenever you're dealing with something that not everyone can understand or relate to, it feels pretty lonely.
Mhm.
So,
For sure.
but I appreciate you sharing all of this, and we've talked about all of the fueling and stuff. And the last thing I want to just quickly touch on is the training itself, because how do you feel like you or do you feel like you have to train differently because of type 1 compared to others? You obviously mentioned the timing of it and stuff like that, but if we look at just a training plan, regardless of it, if it's
Yeah.
5 a.m. or 10 a.m., but is it different?
For a time goal, it's not that different, right? Like, you gotta hit the paces. I think where it can be different is making sure you're getting that type of simulation that's gonna challenge your blood sugar in training. So not being afraid to challenge your blood sugar in training and be prepared for it, right? And so that could be like every type 1, every athlete's different. But for me, like, I know tempo runs, like those threshold runs are where I struggle in terms of diabetes management. So I'm gonna have to have tempo runs in my schedule. And so it's focusing more on the things that are gonna push you, but also, like, as a coach mentality, you can't only have that type of training. You've gotta have those confidence boosting sessions, and especially as someone with type 1 who's dealing with a lot, if you're not adding in confidence boosting workouts in there, like, you're just gonna, like, mentally be burnt out. So it's that balance, and again, I don't think the training's that different. It might just be more intentional on the purpose of the day. Like, it's not just, "Hey, you're getting a threshold in. Hey, we're getting a threshold in, and we are gonna take the race day insulin you plan on and the race day fuel because we need to simulate what the blood sugars are gonna do." So there's more intention behind those workouts.
And what does a normal long run look like for you?
For a marathon,
Yeah, for a marathon.
I mean, I usually get up to 24 miles now, but I've started going more on time-based training, which I love. So if I'm gonna be running a 2 sub 240 marathon, I want to get out there for at least 2.5 hours on one of my runs, right? Like almost that same time, not necessarily distance. So I'm prepared for what that time on feet is going to do for myself and for my diabetes. Um, I also am a big fan of like decoupling the threshold workouts from the long run. I think a threshold long run workout's great, but I think having to do threshold like midweek as well is also really important. And so sometimes those days get long too. So I kind of have 2 long run days a week, and that's what I've taken into 50K training as well. And so like a midweek day, like when I have more time for work, like will be 15 to 16 miles, and then sometimes another double. So like I almost have 2 20-mile days a week, like in peak training. And those are those like double long run days, I think build you. Um, that said, I've always been a hard days hard, easy days easy person. So those are hard days. The easy days are like an hour, whatever my body wants to do in that hour. If it's like 8.5 minute pace, which is over 2.5 minutes slower per mile than my race pace, like that's what it is, right? Like that's the huge difference I think I've added to my training to get to that next level.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I always ask the guests what their long runs look like because I feel like it's so different from runner to runner.
I'm also a huge fan, even if you're training for a flat road marathon, do a 3-hour run in trails. And even
Yeah.
if it includes a lot of hills, like historically road runners shy away from trail running, and that's fair, like especially if you're worried about getting injured, but like it can unlock another level because you're having to run now a hilly like 3-hour long run. Um and it just makes you strong in a different way. Makes you appreciate the flat road.
Hmm. Thank you so much for everything you shared. I just want to give you the opportunity, like at the end of this conversation, because you were saying that you have some, was it a nonprofit or something that you're passionate about? Share a little bit about that and how can the listeners find it?
Yeah, so Diabetes Sports Project is my nonprofit that I do with my friend Casey. And so we are obviously supporting people with diabetes to exercise. And that's through coaching. So I actually partner my own coaching business, which is Embrace the Grind. You can look that up too. It's called let's embrace the grind.com. But so I now coach type 1 athletes and other athletes, not just type 1s. But that's kind of my way of giving back to the DSP team. And I'm also like leading our development. And so connecting type 1 athletes with other type 1 athletes in their sport, just so they can build a community of how to manage it. And so, yeah, we always need support. We'd love to do more races together and stuff, but like costs go up, right? So, yeah, so that's our nonprofit. And then, yeah, my own coaching business is Embrace the Grind coaching. So,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Sofie, and good luck with everything. I hope that you'll reach your goals and that maybe you won't just be one of the participants of the Olympic trials next time. I hope so.
Thank you. You too. I can't wait to follow you.
Thank you. Okay, have a good one.
You too. Okay.
I can't believe Sofie is dealing with all of this and she's that fast of a marathoner. Marathon running is hard without any of these challenges or problems, and her dealing with that and battling with that is really, really impressive. And I'm really happy that she's sharing her story because I know that whether it's, my autoimmune disease or other things, we will always try to find other people who are dealing with the same if we are seeing them dealing with something like that. Then, or if we're dealing with something ourselves, we want to see other people kind of overcoming that challenge or dealing with it. And I think that's what Sofie's doing in a great way here. So just wanted to say thank you to Sofie for coming on. Really appreciate that. And I also want to thank you for listening to the Marathon Podcast. Please give this podcast a review, share it with a friend, and follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to the podcast. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio.